What does success actually mean to you?
Success is an individual thing. I could hit 1 million liquid in the bank. I might want 10 million. I'm a tenth of the success. We can only focus on one thing at one time. If we put all our attention in all areas of our life at all time, we won't go anywhere. If I'm concentrated right now on hitting 1 million cash in the bank, being 10 stone, going on stage, working on my business, finding a new home, trying to get the next car I'm after. If I do all that at once, I'll not get anywhere.
Yeah.
So when we're working
especially
on...
the 10 stone bit.
Yeah. So if we focused on being 10 stone, that's not a goal, by the way. That's. But if I was focused on that one thing, that's going to take up so much of my life that everything else has to give. If we work on everything all at once, I think you're actually being counterproductive.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Need to Succeed podcast, where we have incredible conversations with phenomenal entrepreneurs just to understand what is the need to succeed. Because here's the thing, two people can go through the exact same situation. One person decides because of that situation, they can no longer achieve the things that they want to achieve in life. The other person decides because of the exact same situation that they have to achieve every single thing they've ever dreamt of. Same situation, different outcomes. What is the mindset of the successful entrepreneur? That is exactly what we look to uncover on the Need to Succeed podcast. And today we have an absolutely incredible guest. He is a property investor, a property educator, now sharing what he knows with the world as well. And very recently has just become a pilot. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Paul Tinker.
Thank you, mate. I was expecting a round of applause there, but it's only me and you here, so...
There you go. You did you were looking at me like, oh, what's like...
I thought there was going to be some clapping in that right now.
Like some confetti just like dropping.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Honestly, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
Super excited for the conversation, mate. Super excited. Now, there is something I didn't tell you about the podcast. Everything else is free for. Don't worry, you're like what? You dragged me all the way down here to like reveal some dodgy business, right? But there are only two set questions. All right, everything else is freestyle.
Yep.
There's the first question and then the last question. Mm-hmm. Everything else, we're just gonna see where the conversation goes. Yep. Right, and I know it's gonna be incredible. But here's the first one. What does success actually mean to you?
Oh. That's not just a short question, that is it? That's a phenomenal question. I love it. And what does success mean to me? Well, in a nutshell, it's the attainment, the achievement, the meeting, the winning, the getting of the goals that you've set for yourself. But that's not just in business. So we're talking in business, in life, in your health, in fitness, in your holidays, your house, your car, everything that when it all comes together forms this thing we call life. The achievement of those things, for me, is the mark and definition of what success is.
That's crazy. I mean, I agree with all of that because there are all of these different markers because they are separate, right? Someone who's got £1 million could also be, 25 stone, right?
Yeah, totally.
But like, when you break it down like that, then does that then mean that you can never really achieve success?
No, I don't think so, because I believe that like success is an individual thing. Mm-hmm. Like going back to your £1 million analogy, I could hit 1 million liquid in the bank, but I might want 10 million. Mm-hmm. So therefore, in that example, I've not been successful. I'm a tenth of the success for simple maths. However, if my goal was 100k this year and I hit 1 million, then I've exceeded my goal, and therefore I've surpassed what my definition of success was. But I think what you touched on there about having £1 million but being 25 stone, not only that's more of a balanced view of life overall rather than a measure of success in each area of life. I don't think we can say I am successful overall sort of ever. I think it's an ongoing It's an ongoing journey. Success is developmental.
Yeah. That's exactly the question I was asking. It's like if it's all of these different facets, even if my goal is 100K and I hit 1 million,
Yeah.
but I've also got these other areas of my life, my relationship, my health, all this other side of it.
Yeah.
Then am I successful? But then said it's something that's obviously ongoing. So and if we did hit this successful and then you stopped, then life is just crap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so, as I say, success is different for everybody, but we can only focus on one thing at one time. If we put all our attention in all areas of our life at all time, we won't go anywhere. Like if I'm concentrated right now on hitting 1 million cash in the bank, being 10 stone, going on stage, working on my business, finding a new home, trying to get the next car I'm after. If I do all that at once, I'll not get anywhere.
Yeah.
So when we're working
especially
on
the 10 stone bit.
Yeah. So if we focused on being 10 stone, that's not a goal, by the way. But if I was focused on that one thing, that's going to take up so much of my life that everything else has to give. Like if we work on everything all at once, I think you're actually being counterproductive. So it's once we focus on one area of our life, if you look at the Buddhist wheel of life, if you just focused on one thing, everything else has to give a little bit whilst you achieve that thing. And then we can move around that, if we're calling it a wheel, if we can move around those success measures and keep them as balanced as what's possible, I think success is developmental. I think we're always working on it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's I talk about entrepreneurs who want work-life balance. It's almost an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. Like you have to sacrifice something. No balance involved in achieving success at the highest level. Something has got to give. If you've got a project to do and you've got to stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning, well, your sleep is suffered. Your diet's probably suffered. Maybe you have to be on the road and you only, you can only buy burgers and chips. You got to stop off on the, motorway to pick up, sausage rolls and all this sort of stuff. That's also, not balanced, right? Because you're not producing food or nutrients at its optimum. But that's fine because you're right now trying to achieve this. And then if you flip that to the other side, well, okay, you know what? I'm going to focus on my fitness. I'm going to focus on my health. Then, the amount of time and energy, whether it comes to actually doing the physical work or researching, what you need to do to be your optimum health, you're going to be taken away from actually focusing on my business and doing all this other things. So, the work-life balance thing is almost a myth, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even on board with the phrase.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
My work is my life.
Exactly.
So for me, just by making that statement, it's balanced. and it is.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, man. Great answer. So let's talk a little bit more about you. I want to understand, your journey, because I think your journey is actually really quite interesting. Just because I was on your podcast a few weeks ago, and we spoke a little bit before the podcast and understanding what you've done your previous. I'm like, right, this is really, really cool, really interesting. But I always like to take things back to your earlier days, because I feel like, I think they say something like your first 7 years really kind of forms, your personality or who you are, as you really kind of grow, or it forms a real core of that. So like who was Paul, like growing up as a little boy? Do you remember, what were you like?
I was a little dickhead. So I hope that has not come back through into my future life. No, I was always the bad boy, always, in trouble, and, I was an off-the-rails kind of teenager. Yeah.
No, so this is before teenage years. So I'm talking about like literally as a boy between like 4 and 7.
Between 4 and 7? Yeah. I don't think I could. I have very few memories of my childhood, like that young, to be fair. Like the memories that I do have, I wish I could connect with other entrepreneurs when they talk about their tough childhood and growing. Like it's such a common story that people were brought up on a council estate, or came up in a broken home, or mum died young, or dad died young, or whatever those dark stories are that I hear from most entrepreneurs. I didn't have that, so I was brought up in a strong family unit home in Rotherham in South Yorkshire. Mum and dad were both hardworking, both still with us today. Dad was a steel worker and mum was a seamstress, and that were their jobs. They both worked really hard. Great social life, went on holiday every year. So I had what I consider to be a normal childhood, and all my friends were the same. So when I went past, all I remember from being between 4 and 7 is they're all really happy things, really, to be fair. I never we never struggled as kids, always had money. Mum and dad always gave us pocket money. I worked from an early age, so from being sort of 9-10 years old, I worked. Mum was a seamstress, as I just said, and she used to make teddy bears in the garage. You know, the teddy bears you see at fairgrounds. She used to work for a company that made those, and we used to get 1 pence for every one we stuffed, and it was a proper shit job. You had to get this like bunch of fur, and you can imagine all the fur coming off and going into your lungs and stuff. So this is probably my only sob story from being a kid, getting fur in my lungs. And you had to turn it inside out, and then fill it with foam, and then put a stitch in the bottom. You used to get a penny every one that we did. So me and all my mates used to sit in the garage making these things with my mum. Then when I went to secondary school, that's 11 years old, 11 to 15. I was really good at school, but I was set for really good grades, but come being 15, I started to go off the rails a little bit, and I started getting into Rambo and Rocky and Tango and Cash. They were my movies at the time. Con Air, they were all great films. And Tango and Cash was released. I don't know if you've seen the film with Kurt Russell and who else is in it with him? Is it Sylvester Stallone? No, Kurt Russell and I forget the actor that's in it. Anyway, they do this zip line from one building to another, and they literally get that. He takes his belt off his jeans, throws it over the zip line, and he shoots down to this other building. And I thought, I fancy a go at that. So we went and set one up in this quarry in a village where I lived. But I used a karate belt, because I was into karate at the time. So I got my yellow belt. It might have even been white. I took it off my karate suit and flipped it over this line. And of course, as soon as it got some friction, it burned and snapped. And I fell down this cliff. I landed on my head, which is why I'm so beautiful, in the bottom of this quarry, and I was comatose. Is that the right word for when you're in a coma? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was comatose for 2 weeks. Broke my wrist, my jaw, and my finger. I was really, really lucky to survive. And I tell that story because I was in hospital during the exams for my GCSEs. So I didn't sit my GCSEs. And at the time, you were able to have an estimated grade if there were circumstances around your exams that meant you couldn't physically attend. And being in a coma, that I qualified. So all my GCSEs were estimated. And they were all Ds. They estimated them all Ds, despite me getting A's and B's in my mock exams, which had happened a few weeks before. And then my dad's like, he didn't punish me, but he was like, you need to get proper grades, so you're going to college, you're going to go to university, and you're going to do this, that, and the other. So I left school almost under my dad's control and command. And he wasn't a domineering type of person. He was he just wanted the best for me, and he thought that that's what successful people would do. So I left school and went and did my A-levels, and I decided computer studies, well, it's computer programming, should I say, human biology, because I started getting into women, and PE, because the teacher was a woman. They were the reasons that I picked them 3 things. And 9 months into my course, it was like, this is not for me. No, this is not for me. I'm quitting. And my dad was not impressed. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I'm going to leave. I'm going to go get a job. So I went and joined a YTS scheme, which back then it stood for Youth Training Scheme, I think. And it was 30 quid a week. And I went to be a car mechanic. And I worked for this guy called DC Cook, Derek Cook, and he was a local car dealer. His family were Formula 3 racing drivers. And I went on the apprenticeship scheme with him to build these race cars, which was pretty cool for an 18-year-old lad.
Very cool.
But not wise for him to lend me one.
What, if I'm in a free car?
Yeah. So I got a Clio Williams.
Oh, my goodness.
Which I wrapped. And then he gave me an Alfa Romeo. I'm at 18 at this point, by the way.
After you wrapped the first one?
Yeah. And then I got a Lotus 7. So I crashed the Williams. I got 6 points in the Alfa. And then I got 6 points in the Lotus 7. So I'm on 12 points now. Mm-hmm. I'm about to get banned from driving. Mm-hmm. So I was in the Alfa, actually. I was going down Sheffield Parkway in the Alfa. And I got a tug for speed. I'm thinking, fuck, I'm fucking going to get banned from driving now. So I gets in the back of this cop car. He said, what's your name? And I went, Simon Topper. And he went, right, Mr. Topper, can I have your details? Yeah, number 5 Smith Avenue. I'm just literally making it up on the spot. Anyway, he took my details, gave me a producer. That's what they used to do at the time. And I went on my way in the Alpha, and I thought, fucking nice, I got away with that. So I got back to the shop, and I starts telling the guy that was training me, my apprentice lead, shall we call it, his name was Ian Lound. I said, Ian, I've just been had a tug off the coppers. I didn't know that you could just give a fake name. And they were like, you can't just give a fake name, mate. Well, I said, well, he didn't know I was, so I just gave him a fake name, and I'm on my way. He doesn't know whose car it is. And he went, yeah, but they're going to know that the car belongs to the garage, and then they're going to come in and you're going to get double fucked. And I was like, nah, they aren't going to know this. So anyway, he goes and grasses me up to the boss. And I'm thinking, you bastard, you're going to go and grass me up now? So he goes up to him. My boss was called Simon Grantham. And Simon comes, he was a big, massive guy, and he comes bowling down, wobbling down. He's from Grantham, I'll never forget him. And he comes, you just give a fake name to the coppers, lad, and they're going to come round here looking for you. Get in the car. And he dragged me in the car, and he took me to the police station. And I thought, what's going to happen? I was shitting myself. And he marched me over to the desk, and he said, he's just gave you a fake name. And I was like, what? You've just fucking grassed on me like that. Anyway, the coppers gave me £100 fine for giving this fake name. And then they took me to court over the speeding. And the judge actually took pity on me in Sheffield Magistrates Court. And he said, I'm going to give you 5 points, which means, but I'm not going to ban you. So you're going to get 14 points, but you're not banned, because if I take your license away, you can't no longer be a mechanic. So we're going to plead exceptional hardship, but 14 points prevents you from getting your own car and your own insurance, but you'll still be able to be insured by the company. So I was like, nice. Week later, the boss said, no more fast cars for you, because you're going to get banned. And he gave me this little Renault 5. It was the right piece of shit, this car. And I was like, I ain't driving this. And he went, that's all you've got? I was like, look, I joined this sports car team. Anyway, I had a row with him, and I walked out, and I said, I ain't working for you, you fucking knobhead, and all the rest of it, as you do when you're 18. And I walked out, and my dad's like, what are you going to do now? I don't know. So I met this girl called Claire Rutter, and I went to school with Claire, and she was joining the army at the time. I said, when are you joining? She said, about 4 weeks' time. So I'm thinking, yeah, 4 weeks, we can have a good time for 4 weeks, and then she'll be off. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I said to her, tell me a bit more about this army lark that you're joining. I said, yeah, And she's telling me about it. And she said, how'd you go and do that then? So she said, you just go down to Sheffield Army Careers Office and tell me you want to join. So I thought, fuck it, I'll do that. So up I went, and I went down to the Careers Office in Sheffield. And I gone through the front doors, and the guy says, what do you want to join then? And I was like, the army. And he went, yeah, but what in the army do you want to join? And I was like, just the army, mate. Is there a choice? And he said, yeah, well, what are you good at? I said, well, I'm a car mechanic at the time. He said, well, the natural choice for you would be to join the REME, which is the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, where all the car mechanics and van truck mechanics all join. He said, let's put you in for that. So I said, yeah, that's good then. So he sits me down, he said, right, ID, driving licence, blah, blah, and I had to tell him I had 14 points on my licence. And he went, well, the REME won't have you with 14 points. And I said, well, what can I join then? He said, let's try the Royal Engineers. I said, okay. What do they do? He said, well, you can still, work on cars. You can join as a Royal Engineer. They're not too bothered about how many points you've got on your license, and you'll still be able to work on cars when you join. I said, okay, let's do that. So he signs me up for the Royal Engineers. And then when you join the Royal Engineers, you then have to pick a trade, what they call a trade. And before they pick a trade, they give you an intelligence test. They call it a barb test. And all it is you've got to pick these numbers out of a box. It's a bit like a Mensa test, an IQ test. And my memory of the test was they send it, it's like an old Atari computer, and this ball takes off on the screen, and then it disappears. Then you've got to guess when it's going to hit the floor. So the pole goes up, and I missed it every time. I could not work out how to do this thing. He said, you failed the intelligence test for mechanic. I was like, he's joking. And he went, no. I said, what else can I do then? He said, well, how about an electrician? I said, yeah, I'll do that then. And here's me I just wanted in to be near this woman. And so I sit again, intelligence test for the electrician. Can't join that, you're not smart enough. I was like, mate, I'm doing that test again. What's my options? He said, you can be a bricklayer if you want. And I was like, fuck it, I'll do that. And that's how I became a bricklayer. So I joined the army in the Royal Engineers as a bricklayer because I was seeing this girl at the time. And that is literally how I ended up in the army. And I turned up at training regiment in Basinborn in 1995, and she was there. And as soon as I saw her, I went straight over to her, and I got caught in the women's block once I got there. I'd been there 2 days. So they took me out of the women's block, sent me to jail. The time I was in jail, whilst she was finishing her training, she then left, and I got put back in the troop. And so my first experience of the army was prison, which was great. And then I started my career in the forces from 95 as an engineer, and I'd learned my trade as a bricklayer in the Royal Engineers. And then went out to Germany, served 7 years there. Went out to Cyprus and served 3 years there, and then came back to the UK to teach recruits to do what I'd been taught, so to become a combat-ready combat engineer. And that move back to the UK came from prison as well. So I was based in Cyprus, and I had a bit of a smuggling racket going on. I was bringing fags in through Turkey, through northern Cyprus, through southern Cyprus, then back to the UK on military flights. And eventually got caught. I was doing this regularly, and eventually got caught by the Cypriot police, who arrested me, threw me in prison in Paphos, which was fucking horrendous. Then I got deported from the island upon release, and went back to my punishment of the forces was, you're going to go back to the UK and you're going to teach recruits. Like, that was, at the time, that was a real punishment post for an overseas serving soldier, because you lost all your overseas benefits, and you lost the sun, and you lost the unit that you're in, and you get put in this training regiment, which we used to call babysitting when I was a training instructor. And I did that for 2-3 years, and then decided this is not for me. Like, I can't be being a training instructor, training NCO as it was. So I'm going to leave. So I handed in my notice.
How long were you in prison for in Paphos?
Well, I got sentenced to 2 years, but I served 2 weeks of it, and then I bought myself out, which it wasn't an option. But you can say, look, I'm kind of guilty. How much is it? How much is the fine? But the solicitor sorts all this out with the courts, and I paid $2,500. So I basically bought myself out of Nick.
$2,500. It's a good deal.
Yeah, fucking right. It's a good deal.
Sentence.
Yeah, especially since how many fags I'd been smuggling. It was peanuts. And then getting back to the UK, when I left, I found myself a little bit lost again. So when you leave the army, they say to you, like, what are you going to do when you leave? We've got a duty of care to look after you, to transition you back into civilian life. And when I did that, they were like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm sat in this workshop, and I did not know what I was going to do. I'm sat around this table. It was a round table. And there was this guy called John. He was the facilitator of this workshop, career transition workshop it was called. And he's going around the table going, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you leave? And it was in a group setting, a bit like a mastermind. And I'm just going to work in Morrison's. I'm going to go and do this. And people at their end of their career, you know. And the guy next to me was called Joe. And he gets round to Joe, and Joe said, I'm going to be a construction project manager. And I went, I fucking like the sound of that. And I had no answer, so I copied him. I said, yeah, I'm going to be a construction project manager as well. And he looked at me and he went, you've just made that up, haven't you? And I went, yeah, I was just, you said it, so I fancy a bit of that. So I'll do that as well. So the rest of this workshop was then about writing CVs and training for interviews and prepping to be a civilian and all these other things that comes with part of transitioning from the army. And then me and Joe applied for the same job in Scunthorpe it was. That's how I ended up back in Scunthorpe. And I got the job and he didn't. And he still doesn't speak to me now because of this. Yeah, so in the last year of me being signed, because when you sign off from the army and give your notice, you've got to wait a year before they'll actually let you leave, and you have this transitionary period. So I had a brief stint in close protection down here in London in the West End. Yeah. Hated that industry. It was awful. Really antisocial hours, working with drunk knobheads and prima donna celebrities and their families, and it was just an horrible place to be. So I left that industry, moved up north to Scunthorpe because I got this job.
What was the job exactly?
It was construction project manager.
Okay. So what qualified you for that job at the time, though? Oh,
that's a great question. I don't think anything did. Now, in project management, believe it or not, there is no need. There's no necessity or legalities around being qualified per se. I was interviewed by an old boy. He loved the fact that I was in the army. I'd been a brickie in the army and I'd ran sections of men. And that's what he loved. Gave me a shot, and he did tell me he was giving me a shot. And I immediately made a difference and an impact in the business that I'd joined. It was ran a bit like a property developer's site, like shit show. And I've walked into this business where I was given responsibilities of people reporting to me and money and managing subcontractors. And I'm brought into this space where all I know is the army. I've been 14 years in the forces, so all I know is discipline, procedures, rigidity, process. That's all I know. That's how I think. That's how I operate. It's how I walk. It's how I run my day. And to see this like Wild West of construction sites I was walking onto, and I brought my natural skills, my natural skill set from the army to that process, was very much like, well, why don't you just do this, 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 and this? Why don't you have A, B, C, and D? Why don't you do that first, then that first, and that first? And I really shook that business up, which was good. However, my contracts manager, who was my boss at this business, he didn't like this. I was stepping on his toes. So he farmed me out to another part of the business, which was another site, and I did the same thing. And then the new contracts manager I was working for, he loved it, and he gave me more responsibility, bigger jobs, and put me onto a bigger project. And I didn't truly have the intrinsic trade knowledge that people think that they need to be an effective project manager. You just need to understand process and procedure. Like if you can go from A to B and have the discipline to go from A, B, C, D, follow the steps, if you can do that, like you'll be good at project management. Left that after about 5 years and went to work for E.ON, the energy company. Now they've got a construction arm inside of their business, and I went to work for them. I went as a site manager to go there. It was a bit of a step down in my career. But very quickly, same thinking. It was another shit show, believe it or not, being in a business of that size.
Yep.
And then, again, I just put the procedures in place, and I was promoted 4 times in the first 18 months of being there.
Wow.
And ended up running the major works division for that business. And I had sites going from the south coast right up to Wick in the north of Scotland. And I was flying around the country from site to site on short flights, internal flights. Took a real detrimental is probably the right word, detrimental impact on my health. It was really, really stressful. Lots and lots of money under my watch. I had 10 and 20 million pound sites. 300 million pounds worth of work had been done in total. And that led to, as I was flying from site to site, and I'd be in a week, I might be on 5 different sites in 5 different parts of the country. So I became the bit of the, gaffer's coming, let's take him out. And so I was on the piss every night. Developed massive alcoholism, which also stemmed from being in the forces as well. That didn't help. I was a rugby player as well. And that forces, rugby, construction, and then into jet set lifestyle around
Very
the
masculine
UK.
environment.
Very masculine, yeah. Very ego driven as well. And after 5-6 years working for that business, I just decided, look, I need to do something here. This job is killing me, so I'm going to leave.
What was the trigger point?
Being constantly pissed, and I was fed up of being pissed. And I was, at the time, I was of the belief, truly believed, that it was the job that was doing that. I thought the job was driving that behaviour. And when I left that company, the drinking continued. And that created huge, not conflict, confusion in me. Like, why am I still drinking? I'm not in that job anymore. I've set my own business up. I'm my own boss now. Like, why is it still happening? And when you're sat in that victim mode of the boozers doing something to me, you can't change it. And then in September 2018, I decided, look, enough's enough. I'd set my own business up. I'm still a fucking pisshead. Why hasn't it changed? And in September 2018, I made the decision, 22nd of September, I'm stopping drinking today. That's it. No more drink. And I ain't drank since then, which is almost 6 years on now.
Yeah, you could have chosen after Christmas.
Yeah, I like a challenge though. Yeah, so I stopped the booze that day, and good shit started to happen.
Because normally there's so for me, obviously I've been through homelessness, right? And for me there was I just remember the day when I was like, you know what, I'm just fed up with this, right? Something really happened. I was just in the garage, just duvet was getting wet. It was stinking. I just started crying, and that was it for me. Like this is over. This has to change, right? Because obviously you've been doing this for years, right? And you just made the decision. This ain't happening no more. Did you hit rock bottom? Was there a situation that kind of made you think, you know what, like this, I can't keep doing this, right? Was there anything like that, or was it just one day you just woke up and said, listen, I'm done?
It was a number of things, actually. I was actually on a property training course, and this was the first day, and the guy that was hosting the course was in the forces with me, and I'd not seen him for a long time, and I walked into the room, and he'd not seen me for probably 6 years, and he went, fucking hell, mate, you've put some weight on. And I took real offence to that. And that wasn't the thing that stopped me drinking. It was like, oh, fucking hell, like bombshell.
Yeah.
Then we did the first, like all these property trainings, it's on mindset to begin with, right? And we did this, he did this exercise of, I forget what it was. There was one part of this mindset training. Oh, it was taking personal responsibility. That's what it was. So I'm sat there thinking, at the time I was still in the mode of the drinks doing it to me, but taking responsibility to realise that actually the drink's not doing anything to me. I'm doing it to me. Like, and when you realise that, and it sounds such a simple shift in your thinking, and at the end of that first night, I was on the course and I confided in a guy called Simon Wynn. Me and Simon were chatting, and he had a bit of a sniff problem at the same time, and we were talking about this problem. And he was like, I'm just not going to have any tonight. And I went, fuck it, I'm not either. Which was a real bold statement for me, because I was on it hard every single day. And I was in this hotel, away from the family, in new surroundings. And I'm at the bar that night, and I ordered a water. And for that felt weird. I didn't consciously not drink, I just had a water. But it felt weird to order a water. Went back to my room that night. And I woke up the next day like, what the fucking hell, this is weird. I ain't got a furry mouth. Like I can taste myself. I wasn't licking myself. I mean, I can taste my own mouth. It was just a strange, new feeling. And I liked it. So it wasn't a struggle the first night. And then this course was 7 days long. So I went all the 7 days and it was the same. Just repeated the same thing. Had the water, created a new routine in a new environment. Then on the 7th night, at the end of that night, there was a party that night. And my wife came, so she travelled up to the hotel. And I was really worried about it. Like, I thought, we're going to get fucking messed up tonight. Like, we're going to have it large. Because I hadn't drank all week. You know how it goes. And she turns up and I said, do you know what, love? I ain't had a drink all week. And she went, neither have I. And I went, what? Because my wife used to drink a lot as well. She said, oh, neither have I. I went, well, really? She went, yeah, well, you've not been here, so there was no point. And I was like, well, you weren't with me either, so there was no point. But now we're together, let's have it. And she went, nah, I don't fancy it tonight. And I was like, let's see if we can do it. So we went through this party, and we was on a table with a guy called Chris Adlam. He's a broker, and fucking hell, he was smashing the champagne away. I bet he'd done 3 bottles on his own by 8 o'clock, and he was mullered. And to observe that, and it was like, me and my wife were like, that would be us, that should be me and you getting amongst it like that. Anyway, we didn't drink all night, and we actually drove home that night, and we were talking about the whole way home, like the difference in not drinking and observing people that are getting amongst it. And we got home, and it was, there wasn't a point where we both went, we're stopping drinking, we've got a problem. That never happened. That was not an event. There was no trigger around that. But then we just didn't drink all month, and we got to the end of the month, and it was like, we had a drink all month. And then it was like, see how far we can go. So then we did a year. Wow. And it was like, what's the point in drinking?
Yeah.
It's just fucking poison.
After a year, yeah.
Yeah. And then it was 2 years, then it was 3 years, then it was 4, then it was 5. Now it's just normal to not drink. But strangely, I miss booze more now than I ever have done. Ever. Like, I could go down here now, sunshine outside, I could go into the first bar and get absolutely upside down, and it would. I think I could just go, if I did that, I would go straight back to where I was if I did. So I avoid going into pubs at all, where possible. I would never choose to go in a pub anymore. I don't drink alcohol-free beer because I don't know what that would do or bring. And I love the taste of beer. Absolutely love it. Or loved it. I can't actually remember what it tastes like now, but
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? So like addiction is something that stays with you for life, and you always have to be conscious about. I watch a lot of Russell Brand, and he talks about this because obviously he used to be an addict himself, and he talks about it, that you just have to. It's everything. I think he did the is it the AA thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's every day. So you'd be like, I've been sober now for 11 years. Not I'm sober. Like that's not a thing. It's I've been sober for 11 years because you know that any given day you could actually reverse back to that, right? Yeah, amazing. Okay, cool. Like you spoke about the construction, the project management, which you touched on slightly, but that's kind of pretty much what you actually do now, right? This is your thing. But it's such, I'm from, within the property space. When I started off, I was an estate agent and then worked for like a property investment firm in the city. And now I've got my own, I guess you would say, alternative from the mainstream, property business, which is service accommodation. But this, I guess, are more conventional means of people getting into the property space. Yours, not so much, right? It was really, really interesting, but it's also like a key part, especially if you're talking about development. It's like it's a key part of the whole thing. Obviously, you've explained how you get into it, but can you just explain what's the biggest thing within the construction industry when it comes to project management that people either get wrong or maybe they just don't pay attention to?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. I don't want to say the word blame, but I'm going to. I'd have to blame the mainstream property education space. There's such a flippancy given to how a project should be ran. Just ring a builder or just get 3 quotes. And this is literally, I've been in rooms and heard that shit taught. There's so much more complex than that. Like project management is a full-time career where it can ruin lives if you get it wrong. You'll lose properties if you get it wrong. You'll lose money if you get it wrong. You'll lose teams and people if you get it wrong. We've got to manage time, as in the program of works. We've got to manage safety, making sure people go home at the end of every shift in one piece. We've got to manage compliance to make sure we're keeping legal in everything that we do. We've got to manage specification and standards to make sure that the thing that we're going to get at the end is our decision. It's been driven by an exit strategy, but it's been driven by a goal. Otherwise, everything's left to chance. And the reason that I created what I've created with the Construction Training Academy is from working with property developers in a builder capacity. I quickly realised and saw that there were people in this space investing 7 figures and more into their assets with no approach whatsoever. And I've got multiple analogies to that, real everyday analogies that you just wouldn't do. You would never walk into a restaurant and say to the waiter or the waitress, just bring us a meal, will you? Like, what are you going to get when you say that?
Chips.
You could get anything, couldn't you? You could get something you're allergic to. You could get a massive plate when you're not really hungry. You could be starving hungry and then bring you something small. You could get a steak and you could be vegetarian. Like, you're leaving so much open to chance. You might only have a tenner and the meal they bring is 50 quid. If you don't take hold of the meal and really describe how long you've got, how long you can commit to eating that meal, how much money you've got in your pocket to spend on that meal, what are the things that you like and what are the things that you don't like. Same as a holiday or a house or a car. You would never walk into a car garage and say, excuse me, Mr. Car Dealer, Dodgy Dave, I'm after a car. Oh, what kind of car do you want? Oh, there you pick the car. Well, how much do you want to spend? I'm not telling you that. What colours do you like? Just, anything. And then, you've got an image of what a car is for you, but you don't want to share it. And then, like a banger gets turned up, or a Rolls Royce gets pulled out the front, and he wants 100 grand for it, and you only had 50 grand. Like these everyday analogies that I have for this, people can relate to. But yet people are prepared to go into a construction project, maybe 7 figures, 8 figures or more. And they're prepared to go into that space with absolutely zero planning, knowledge, skills, experience, legislative needs and requirements. They just want to get some keys, turn up with Judy from next door with her dog and the kid in their arms on a Facebook Live in the flip-flops and start pulling the kitchen out. and putting shovels through ceilings, and you just go like, what are you doing? There's so much money at stake here. There's so many lives that are impacted by you getting this fucking wrong that I can't actually believe my eyes that you're prepared to do this on a wing and on a chance. But as I say, the individuals that are doing this, they're either unaware that there is a process that can be followed, so unaware of project management skills, techniques, and practices, or they've been told that the way that they're doing it is okay, and the way that they're doing it right now is going to make them a fortune.
Yeah.
And I can hand on heart say, absolutely, categorically, 100%, every mistake that is ever made on a project, ever, or anything that costs you money or goes wrong, could have been avoided. Every single time could have been avoided with prior proper planning of that project. And it's the thing that people don't want to do. And I can't understand why. I'd like to think that they just don't know that it can be done.
Yeah.
But I do believe that people are prepared to do it blindfolded and go into this thing completely blinkered.
I don't know if I agree that people are happy to go into something blindfolded. I think people don't understand the complexities, behind what they're doing. And as you mentioned, there's mainstream education, which is telling you, like you said, get free quotes, get free tenders, use these tenders to obviously negotiate, better rates for yourself and then obviously go with the best one sort of thing. But, if you don't have a foundation, so for example, I'm working with a marketer at the moment, and I'm trying to get some funnels built for my, coaching side of things. If I don't have a base understanding of marketing and copywriting and exactly, what I want that journey to look like, for my clients or for my potential students, if I haven't got an idea of that at all, then this person's going to tell me, okay, this is what we should do. Now, I don't understand, well, should I actually have something organic as well? Or should we just do paid? What is it going to look like in terms of paid? What kind of results are we likely to get based on this funnel that you're looking to build? Is there actually something else that we can do where I can put in more time? So, for example, why don't we just do a webinar funnel as well? And then we can also drive traffic through a webinar. Should that webinar be a live webinar every single week, or should it be an automated webinar? If I haven't got any understanding of this person just goes, yeah, let's bang a funnel up. We're going to do an ebook with the front and then we're going to stick them in.
Yeah.
Then, okay, you're the professional, crack on with it.
Yeah.
But you need to have someone. Now, I can't build out what this person's going to build out as well as this person's going to build it out. But I can say, actually, I'm not sure an ebook is going to work for my audience, right? Because of this, and this. Why don't we do a free training instead? Give them a test of what they're going to. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
but
totally. I think it's quite a slightly different analogy, what you just shared about the marketer. I think what you're describing there is being almost reliant on what the marketer that you want to work with is telling you to do and what they're sharing with you, which is in my world, in the world of construction, the problem becomes builders, tradesmen don't have that, and they won't share that.
Yeah.
They'll just go with the flow, go with what's easy, go what's going to make them more money. They're going to share with you the process because that's detrimental to them and beneficial for you.
Now, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying for this person who's the developer who's going to these people put tenders in, but they say, this is what we're going to do, this is the price. And because you don't have an idea, you're just going, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, I'll just go with that then, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's going to kill you, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. You need to wholly be in charge of everything on that job is the developer's responsibility. Everything. If you want a grey chair like that with that, and you want that concrete pillar and the white wall and the white curtain and the black pole, if you want that, you've got to say that. Because otherwise, the builder's going to be picking that. And they aren't going to do that with what you want. They'll do what benefits them the most. If they've got a ISO container with orange curtains in and you haven't picked a curtain they bought from China last year that they can't get rid of, guess what's going in? You're getting orange curtains. And if you want your white ones, you're going to have to pay an extra to have them changed. And you've got to take control of it and take responsibility for absolutely everything on that job. It is all on the developer. Everything is. And when something goes wrong, when your expectations are not met, this is never the builder's, it should never be the builder's position where it's on them. It's always on the developer. And if they're ever in a position where the builder is putting in something that doesn't meet expectation, or it's not quite what they wanted, or something that they didn't like, then we've got to look at self and go, well, why did that happen? But people aren't prepared to do that. People just want to blame the builder because that's the easy thing. Yeah, builder ripped me off. Builder ran over time. Fucking bollocks. You didn't take control of the situation.
Absolutely. Paul, how big is that industry? Because I know, for example, project management itself is, you don't really see a lot of project managers who buy a job. If they want to do freelance, then fine. They might have to, tender for a couple of different jobs before they actually find one. But project management, the skill, those qualifications, the Prince 2s and the Agile and all that sort of stuff. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, don't I?
I've actually got Prince 2,
but yeah, anyway, there you go. But there's a lot of jobs out there for project managers across a whole different spectrum of industries, especially like IT and places like this, right? How big is project management positions within property?
Within property development?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
In terms of the opportunity, because...
Oh, the opportunity?
Yeah.
Oh, mate. I dread to think. I really do dread to think. So my training business, so I train people to be able to do exactly what I'm describing, to become effective project managers. And I have a mastermind group of which I have 10 members and no more. And all 10 of those project managers are turning work away. There's that much of it. It only works when there's enough headroom in the project to be able to afford to hire one, if that makes sense. If you're going to outsource it, this is. So until you hit that point of revenue in your development business, you need to be doing it yourself. Because let's say you're doing a 250k job. There's now enough headroom in the project to warrant and carry an outsourced PM to deliver the job for you. But up until that point, 250k I've found to be the sweet spot. Up until that point, there's not really enough margin, enough profit, enough top in the top of the numbers to be able to bring in someone to outsource, because you're eating into your profits. So therefore, you must have the skills to be able to do that yourself. And that's where I come in.
Are you talking 250k project cost or 250k profit?
Build spend. Yeah, so the size of the development itself.
Okay, cool. So are you coaching people into having the skill sets to be able to manage their own projects, or to be able to actually go into the industry and actually get jobs based on their skill set? Yeah,
so it's both. So the training journey starts with a 5-day project management training, which teaches them to then go and deliver their own projects. If they want to then develop that as a business, that's what my mastermind does.
Okay.
So we support them then for 12 months and beyond in bringing that as a service to the industry.
Even if there's, so for example, obviously you've got a construction background. Does that lean more towards people like yourself, like builders and stuff like that? Or if, let's say someone like, I wouldn't use me because I'm kind of in property, even though it's very different from development, but let's say an IT contractor. Yeah,
mate, it's so amazing you've just asked that question. My most successful and common industry that I attract leads from is IT. And I asked this question when I was at a networking event in Leeds on Thursday. I was sat at a table with 3 IT engineers and we had this conversation. I brought it up and shared that stat for me in my business. And we all believe that it's because the skills are very transferable. IT project managers think exactly the same as a construction project manager. Very procedural, linear, A, B, C, D, E, and they follow a process. And so does construction project management. Actually, people coming from a trades background, they're the hardest ones to work with. Egos, preconceived ideas, I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. They've been doing it for 30 years and I can't teach them anything new. The older guys, the older guard, your 60-year-old plasterers, fucking impossible. Like, I aren't working with you because they won't change. They've been doing it for so long, trying to teach an old dog new tricks and all of that. We get the odd one that says, yeah, I'm prepared to change, but very few and far between.
What about someone who's working in Sainsbury's right now?
Mate, it's a process. And I'd go as far as to say, and I do mean this, people that come on my course, the most successful, have got no construction experience per se, especially on the tools. And I say that because they've got no preconceived idea. They've got no bad habits. They've got no, well, I used to do it like this and it was easier. So there's no reversal. Because what I teach is hard work. If someone's got to go and they've got to take steps 1, 2, and 3, and that takes a long time. If they've done it before steps 1, 2, and 3, and they've done it in half an hour instead of 3 days, when the going gets tough, they're going to go back to the half an hour approach. So those that come with no experience are the most successful.
I think they can go into the industry and get jobs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're just coming to learn a procedure. They're coming to learn a process. Anyone could follow what I teach. Anyone could do it.
Wow.
Literally.
Okay. That's incredible. I mean, so I mean, that obviously then becomes a huge opportunity for people.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying that is because, for me, one of my goals is to show people how they can actually get freedoms, for themselves and, maybe even just increase their own income bracket. It doesn't have to be their own business, but obviously this is something where they can set up their own businesses. I know a lot of project managers are effectively self-employed, aren't they? Right? They have sole traders or whatever it might be. But if you're someone who's on 25K a year and you want to learn a skill where there's a huge demand, like there's a huge demand within construction. It's just ridiculous. I think 20 years ago, Boris Johnson said we needed to build 300,000 homes every year for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. We haven't hit that target in one single year yet. The numbers are getting worse every single year because the deficit is getting more and more. I think the current numbers are something like 400K a year. They've got to be built.
Yeah.
They're going to need construction. They're going to need construction project managers.
Yeah, absolutely.
To actually expedite these processes, right?
Yeah.
So there's a huge opportunity for people to, to create, a new income stream for themselves, right?
Yep, definitely. It's regularly I try and articulate the role to people that aren't from my industry.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine an industry where we've got lots and lots of people that need to be told what to do, that don't like to listen. That's what the role is. So if you could imagine a building, if you took this entire building in which this studio's in, and it needed plastering in full, and you dropped 50 plasterers in this building with a delivery at the front door, what do you think the result would be? It would be absolute fucking chaos.
I was going to say, everyone's got
There'd be shit everywhere.
Yeah.
People would be picking the big areas and they'd be doing what's best for them, and it wouldn't get finished on time. It would be an absolute nightmare. People working on top of each other, there'd be no process. You drop a project manager into the mix to take all of those 50 plasterers and that 10 ton of plaster that's been delivered, and you're now going to start proceduralising that process, making sure that they're moving through the building effectively and efficiently. And we can apply the same analogy to anything. Like you and I being here today with Chris and Paris and all the rest of the team and Michael, that would not have happened had it not been for the people that orchestrated today. So without Paris's involvement, there's no way I'd be here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made it. I'd have got lost. I'd have been late. We've got where you and I we're the puppets here.
Yeah.
Just
turn up and sit down.
Yeah, we just turn up, sit down, and chat. Everything else that's got us here is the management side of things, and people don't value management. I've found it's so important. So important.
Yeah, I mean, especially project management. I think when you look at the core industries where project management thrive, you think about the medical sector, you think about the IT sector, think about the construction. Like these are areas where there's really very little room for error.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they value it, then really everyone should value it. Like I wish I had project management skills. Right. I'll probably be managing my life a lot better. Right? I don't have to pay someone for it. But yeah, it's one of those things where project management is an essential skill, really.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this kind of process like you're just talking about now, from getting you to actually sit in that chair and then to creating the content and then, to putting out, highlights of this actual, of this content. How all of that in itself is a process.
Yeah, of course.
That is project management. We're managing each individual podcast episode is a project that needs to be managed until, it finally goes out. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's such an important skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And there's also a view in the property space of project. They think a project manager is turning up on a Friday, taking some photos and sending them off. Yeah. They think that's it. And it's not. And the thing with project management in construction, and in particularly in property development, you get the small thing wrong, it's likely to cost you in money. It will be a financial loss, most likely. Like in surgery, a slightest thing that goes wrong is likely to be a life that's going to be lost. In property development, it is going to be money. 99 times out of 100.
Or health and safety. Someone
of course,
going to prison.
Yeah, I mean, the most common mistakes are going to be financially detrimental mistakes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, there is the safety element as well. But yeah, like when you really look at a process, if I was to say to a developer, there's 100 steps here for you to do, 100 things to do, and at the end, if you do all 100, you're going to get absolutely every penny out of that project as what you could have put in. Even if I gave them that blueprint of 100 things, they still won't do them all.
Absolutely.
They might do 80. They might do 20, and the rest is lost.
Yep.
And that loss will be money.
So true. And that's the project management's job, to make sure all of that gets ticked off.
100%.
Then it's back on your head.
Yeah,
right?
exactly that.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, man. Makes so much sense. So why do you think then that a lot of people don't use project managers?
Good question. I think there are a number of camps, shall we say, and I think the first camp of people is they think that they can do it themselves, which some people can. But I'd encourage everybody to have the skills, knowledge, and experience to deliver a project before they even try it, because it is fucking hard work.
Yeah.
I think that's camp number one. Number two is they think that it's a huge expense. So they'll see a project. Let's say we'll go back to the 250k one. 250 grand spend. My project manager, let's say it's going to be 30k. So there's going to be a 30k fee on top. So they want to dodge that 30k and keep their spend 250 instead of 280. Not realizing that if that's not done properly, that 250 will cost more than 280 in the loss of time, a loss of, and being inefficient, and the loss of material, the losses that happen as a result of a lack of management will happen. They'll cost way more than 30k, guarantee it.
Makes
so
sense.
I think they're the two sort of feelings, and I share those from experience of conversations with people. That's generally the feedback and the things I hear said and shared.
Which makes sense, the monetary side of things, especially.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, yeah.
If it's 250k budget, even though that might sound like a lot of money, I mean, in construction sense, it's not really a lot of money.
No.
Right. So, someone wanting to kind of squeeze that margin, and it's understandable. But like, as you said, one project you might get away with it. When you aggregate across 2 or 3 projects, at one point it's going to come and bite you.
Yeah.
And then, you would have probably wished that you actually did have that project manager in place, wouldn't you?
And look, there's the third thing is the project manager that's trying to sell themselves to the developer in delivering their service. They're not articulating their value is another thing. Like if someone just comes up to me and says, I'll project manage it for you. And if I'm sat there with no knowledge of what a project manager does, and I just look at this guy and go, what does that mean? And if that project manager can't articulate the value of the service, the value that service brings to that project, then why would they hire him?
Yeah.
So there's a lack of sales skills from the profession itself as well. So that's another thing.
Why you? Why have you made this your cross to bear?
Why have I made this my cross to bear? Because I want to see these two. I want to see my industry change, and I want to see these two industries come together to work together. Because when construction and developers meet and work in unison, every fucker wins. Everybody wins. Everybody makes more money. Everybody gets future work. Everybody gets to grow their profile. Everybody gets to grow into the next level of development. Everybody wins in that example. When you've got construction and developer that come and fight, everybody loses. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
Everybody loses. They have accidents. People lose money. People lose their shirt. Projects get snowballed, mothballed. And that's only happening because we're creating an adversarial relationship when it comes to delivering a project. And this should be done in unison. And if they can be done in unison in a true partnership style fashion, everybody wins. And I genuinely want everyone to win in life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a really good answer, because especially within the construction industry, there is a lot of cowboy stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, as you mentioned, that kind of friction where everyone's trying to get their own little bit, everyone's trying to make sure that their bread's more buttered. But actually, if it's a part of the reason again why we have this shortage in skill set. I actually work with a college, and we're trying to get more people into the trade, like plumbers, electricians, gas engineers, because it's just one of those things where there's this massive shortage in skills, and that's because everyone's not really working together to help people get as quickly as possible.
Yep.
The whole apprenticeship scheme is not really working anymore because government don't want to put money in. Companies don't really want to actually just have someone there, that they're having to kind of look after. But if everyone actually comes together, works together, this shortage of skills is no longer going to be there, which means you can actually get more development projects because you're going to have the team, the people to actually be able to complete on the projects, right?
Yeah.
So everything is all connected, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't believe, I'm looking over there, I'm like, I can't believe the time. Yeah, exactly. The time has been an hour already. That is insane, man. But this has been so good, so valuable. But before we wrap you up, as I mentioned, there is one final question. You're just looking at everything that you've achieved so far, from where you started to where you are today. Like, what remains your need to succeed?
What remains my need to succeed? You mean what keeps driving me?
Absolutely.
It sounds really corny and cheesy, but it is. It's not finance. It's not lifestyle. It's the feeling of constantly developing and progressing. Like when I achieve something, I never say to myself, I've got it, I've done it. I want to know what's next. Like, we've just moved into our new training centre, and some would argue that's it, I've got it, I've fucking nailed it. But now I'm thinking, what's next? Where are we going to open a centre next? And it's, let's get another centre. Let's open a centre abroad. Yeah, and I remember filling our awards night in Lincoln last year, and it was like, what's next? So we're putting a conference on at the end of this year, and that's going to be fucking incredible. And that development of business and self is what drives me, because I know what feelings of the feeling of achievement is incredible.
Oh, Paul Tinker?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, mate.
You are listening to the Need to Succeed podcast with Ibrahim Brahma. Make sure to like and subscribe for more episodes like this.